Okay, hey DBC, welcome to just another segment of our marriage moments. Hope you're doing well, hope you're doing healthy. We've been really excited about regathering as a church for the past couple of weeks. It's been really encouraging to us as your staff, and I know encouraging to those of you who have been attending. And so we're excited to get to see people here in our facility and on our campus. So that's awesome. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're healthy, and we're praying for you. And we continue to do that on a weekly basis. And we're excited just to be back, kind of in the groove with doing our marriage moments videos on a weekly basis. And our focus today is really coming from our Regathering Pulse survey that we did several weeks ago, where close to 200 of you responded, and about 60+% of you responded to some of our questions, just dealing with what are you struggling with right now? How is life right now? And more than 60% of you talked about loneliness, you talked about isolation, and you talked about just the difficult issues in our culture around us, the unrest with a lot of the things happening in our culture, just the unrest in politics, you name it, and it's all there. The unrest with pandemic and COVID and going back to school or staying virtual. Yeah. There's just all kinds of things going on. And so we want to address that. We want to talk a little bit about that. I'm joined again with my friend, Dr. Stephen Lytle from Sparrow House Counseling. And Dr. Lytle, we are so excited that you're partnering with us and that you're doing this with us. So welcome, Dr. Lytle. Glad that you're back here with us. The idea of having healthy yet difficult conversation with my spouse. You know, I think you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about this idea of, you know, I see things like this as it relates to what's going on in culture and et cetera. And maybe she sees things or he sees things like this. And when we bring that stuff together, usually a lot of times what happens, this is what I'm learning and what I'm hearing from folks in our congregation is it can explode and it turns into just this mess, you know? And so,
amen.
You know, I mean, I'm going to raise my hand on that. I mean, that's stuff that Jennifer and we have to work on as well. But can you coach us maybe a little bit on, you know, how to enter into and have some healthy conversation about things that maybe we don't we don't agree on, and you know, how it doesn't have to lead to, you know, this contentious thing. You got some insight on that?
That is a great point you brought up, just about agreement, that couples will have two opposing, I want to say even maybe opposing viewpoints on something, and they just can't talk about it. In the Bible, when God designed marriage, two come together to become one, but oneness is not sameness. Men and women are different. Husbands and wives are different. You know, you and Jennifer are different. My wife, Krista, and I, we're different. You know, we're connected, but we're still different. And so there's a differentiation there that we're not necessarily going to see things the same way. And in some senses, we're not designed to see things the same way. We're going to come at it from different perspectives. But the most important part of communication, always has been, always will be, is just listening. And that seems to be an art form that we've lost. You know, in particular, you look at social media, it's all about, or even the media in general, it's all about the presentation. Let me present my viewpoint. Let me present my perspective. Rather than let me try to understand you first. Let me really hear where you're coming from. And so again, I'm going to approach this from the standpoint of marriages, is where husbands and wives are spending more time together. There seems to be more argument because they actually are talking a little bit more, but they've forgotten how to talk about some stuff. And what you did in the beginning when you dated each other, when you were engaged to each other, and probably definitely the first couple of years of marriage or longer, is you really listened to each other. You really tried to listen to understand each other. And maybe you would come to an agreement, but a lot of times you just didn't. But that wasn't as important. Agreeing is not that important in a relationship. That is not the goal of a relationship, is we have to agree. We have to see things the same way. If you start from that standpoint, you're almost certain to fail. You start with, let me just listen to you with the intent of understanding you. That listening is the foundation of good communication. And in that listening, I'm going to try to understand you from your perspective. That's empathy. Now, I'm not you, and so it takes a lot of effort for me to really hear you from your perspective. I'm going to hear you from my perspective, but you're different than me, and that may not be your perspective. So I want to focus first and foremost on just listening to try to understand you with the hope of coming into an agreement. But agreeing is not the most important part, whether it's politics, whether it's culture, whether it's food. That's not the most important thing. I can appreciate you being different than me if I can listen to you and try to understand you. And that's the beauty of getting to know someone. That's intimacy in a nutshell. Is we have this mnemonic we use for the word intimacy is into me you see. Into me you see. I want to see into you. I want to know you. I want to try to understand you. I don't start with, no, I want to agree with you. That's not necessarily intimacy. Intimacy is, hey, I just want to appreciate that you're different than me, that God made you differently than me, that you have different experiences than me, you have different thoughts than me. So let me try to understand you. And from that, there's actually more of a likelihood of coming into an agreement. But what we've tended to find is when you listen to someone with the intent of understanding them, you really discovered that those differences aren't as different as you think they are. There's actually more commonality than there is disconnect, differences. There's more commonality than there are differences when you really listen to understand someone. And there's some things you'll always disagree about. But again, that's not the goal of marriage. So it's listening intently to try to understand you with the hope of coming into an agreement.
I've heard, Steve, that the goal of communication is mutual understanding. So is that
Amen.
Is that pretty much what you're aiming towards here? Is just shoot for that mutual understanding.
Mutual understanding is not mutual agreement, and that's the biggest thing, Brian. That's the goal of good communication, is mutual understanding. I understand where you're coming from. You understand where I'm coming from, and that may be different. And that is okay, because
it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay because I understand you now, and I've developed actually in a sense, if I understand you more where you're coming from, I feel closer to you. Agreement doesn't necessarily make us feel closer. It can, from a temporal experience, make us feel closer, but if that's not the glue that holds us together. If I understand you, I tend to feel closer to you. I feel more connected to you, and the agreement becomes less and less relevant over time.
Yeah, it's so good. That's so good. Well, Steve, thank you so much again for taking a few minutes. I know your schedule is incredibly busy and hectic, and just appreciate you taking some time here with us. And I just want to remind people that if you need some assistance, or if you just need some help here in your marriage, or just in your own personal life, I do highly recommend Sparrow House Counseling, and you just checking them out. Reach out to them. Steve, you did say y'all are seeing clients. You're still doing virtual visits, but you're starting.
We're We're doing both right now, Brian. We're back in the offices. We're probably seeing about 50% of our clients in office, 50% of our clients over Zoom. We're offering both formats, whatever you feel most comfortable with. We're happy to accommodate whatever. And Brian, I want to thank you again for having me on. I really just appreciate the work that you're doing. God bless you, brother. Thank you for everything.
Okay. Right back at you, Steve. We'll talk soon. Okay, brother?
See you later.
All right. See ya.